Hello. Beautiful to see you, gorgeous being. Here I am outside in the cold world. Clearly I'm wrapped up and I'm going to show you the world. Where's the turny camera thing? Okay, so there are still a very few leaves on the cherry tree. And I just love being able to zoom in. I've got a new camera. I got a new phone. But I bought it for the camera, and isn't it gorgeous? I just love this. I'll zoom out again in a minute, but of course you're going to see it better than me because, you know, the sky is bright. Here we go. And so I can't really see, but the camera is seeing it better than me at the moment. So I'm just showing you the garden. My name is Oneness Evolving, and I'm out here because I have spent the morning writing. And I'm writing words for a website that's going to be called God of Me. And say hello to my winter fuchsia. There's orange centres and bright pinky red flowers and the beautiful leaves. And when I've spent the morning writing, I come out here and I show you the garden. Oh look, we've got a blackbird foraging there, and she's not running away. Not black, because the female blackbirds are brown. And they dig around in the leaf mulch there and look for food, of course. That's a very sensible thing for a bird to do. So I come out here and I just show you the garden and what's going on, because this is a Facebook Live, and if you're watching on YouTube and you're wondering why I'm not getting on with it, that's the reason. It's got to have time to propagate out to the interweb. And meanwhile, you can enjoy this beautiful bird. And so I get to talk about what I've been doing, and I'm writing this website and making words for it. But always I start off out here because it gives the live time to show up in Facebook and time to be shared out to the groups where there are some people who hop on and join me sometimes. Just depends what they're doing. So this is the garden. And as I say, it's all tucked up for winter. Because what I mean is I've got it all tidied and everything is covered thickly with mulch. And you can see the spring bulbs are starting to come through, and that's always a very exciting time. So this is tucked up for winter, but really it's tucked up for spring. There's more green things coming through there. And you can see things sprout. Things don't actually sprout in winter, in spring, they sprout in winter. So I'm just enjoying the sunshine. It is nearly the solstice here. So, of course, the days are short and it's cold, but look at that. Isn't the Luculia gorgeous? It's just beautiful to be able to show you the detail with my new phone cam. It's a really nice camera, and I bought the phone for its camera, and I have no regrets because it's just fabulous. And there we go. I was all zoomed in. So look, the magnolia is now a thing that is going to be making flowers quite soon. Hello, it's great to see you, whoever you are jumping on. It's lovely to have people join me live. And look, this was a small thing when I planted it, and you can see it's grown a water shoot. I'll have to prune those out. But look at the shape of the thing. I pruned this over many years, and it's become this beautiful thing. And that's just what you do with the garden as it matures. And look at the hen and chicken fern. It's fabulous. I just enjoy sharing this space with you. But I think because I'm seeing people come on, that I'm going to turn the camera around again and go inside and tell you what I've been writing today. So bear with me as I walk in. It's beautiful. Beautiful. Actually, I'll stand up here on the step and show you the sky. There's the sky. It's nice to see the sun at this time of the year because it's been pretty dark and grey. So there's the view. Right, going inside. The keys out of my pocket always helps. And in we go. Right, close the door. And close the other door that I always forget to shut before I get in here. Alright, and now the phone has its own little stand, and I can tell you what I've been doing this morning. after I've squared the camera up. All right, so today I've written my little notes, and at the top of my little notes it says cracking into alpha. And really it was a bit like cracking, because I started talking about alpha brainwaves last week, and it was kind of like, oh, how do I bite into this apple? And it's often like that when when I'm starting on a new topic. It does feel like biting into something that's quite hard, or when you're peeling an orange and you just can't get into the skin. It's a bit like that. So I did that bit last week, and I knew I was going to carry on. And so I was looking at what I'd done. Hi, Mike. Good to see you. And actually, the first thing I had to do, there's a few things that I untangled. You remember last week I untangled a tangle. I had a story about theta and it didn't flow, and I fixed that up, and that was great. And so this week I was into talking about alpha. But what I actually had to do was I had to go back to theta, because the writing I'd done about theta was really talking about, well, this is what happens when you're 2, and then your brain goes into theta because you're doing more stuff. But I hadn't really explained what the more stuff was. And so the more stuff that we do between the ages of about 3 and 7, and I actually looked up some research to make sure that those age ranges are more or less agreed, because there is disagreement about the age ranges, but I'm going to stick with that. So 0 to 2 we're in delta brainwaves, and then ages 3 to 7 more or less we're in theta, and then from age 7 we start moving into alpha brainwaves, which is what I wanted to write about. But I realised I hadn't really said what happens in theta, so I made a little list. I'm going to read it to you, because I had to start talking sensibly about alpha. I needed to be able to say, well, this is what's different between what happens in alpha and what happens in theta. And I hadn't talked enough about theta to be able to do that. It's like, okay, our brain goes from theta into alpha. So what? Why does it matter? Well, between the ages of about 3 and 7, when our brain is in theta, our brain has to speed up. It's going twice as fast as it is when we're young, when we first born. Hello, I can see another gorgeous being. You've jumped on. It's lovely to have you with us. And so, we go from 0.5 to 4 cycles a second when we're in delta, and then theta is 4 cycles a second to 8 cycles a second. And when we're doing that between ages of 3 and 7, we're doing a ton of stuff. Our brain has to work twice as fast as it did before, because now we're playing, now we're imagining, now we're playing games and making up stories, and those stories are real to us. It's like we're just in the moment, having experiences. We're having all kinds of, we're learning how to move our body. There's all that motor learning and training and conditioning and falling over and finding out what works and what doesn't, and social relationships and interactions. Oh my God, communities, how complicated is it that we work out how to be around other people? All that stuff is going on. We're in theta, we're working that out. We're having all kinds of different feelings and all kinds of different emotions. They're not the same thing, by the way. A feeling you have in your body, an emotion is when you have a bunch of feelings in your body and you say, oh, I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling happy. It's a physical sensation versus us putting a label on it. When you label it, it's emotion. Up until then, it's feelings. And of course, when we're in those between the ages of 3 and 7, we are learning facts and skills and all kinds of things, and we're being hopefully creative, and we're just learning so much. So in those first 3 to 7 years, that's all the kind of stuff we're doing. You think about what young children do. They run around, they play, they move, they imagine, they are with people, they have interactions with people, and they start to learn. So what happens when we're 7? Well, there's a genetic program, I think it's a genetic program that just switches on and says the brain needs to go faster. Because what happens is that when we are in alpha, when we are in theta, depending on your culture, there are things like the boogeyman. The boogeyman will get you. Now, hopefully nobody ever says that to their kids now. But all the same, children can learn that kind of thing from their peers, or it can be part of a culture that there is a boogeyman who will get you if you're naughty or if you're alone by yourself or whatever. And to the child that is still in theta, that boogeyman is absolutely real. Same as Santa Claus is real. If Santa Claus is a myth that is, that is told, that is something that is believed in and participated in, to that child who's not yet 7, Santa Claus really does fly around the world on a sleigh with reindeers in front and drop presents down the chimney or wherever it is you do it, Santa brings presents. Okay, it's real. If you have the tradition of Easter and gifts and chocolate or whatever it is, and of course I'm familiar with the myths in my culture, but you have to think about what's normal in yours. Before the age of 7, while you're still in theta, it's real. And you get very upset if somebody says, oh, the Easter Bunny doesn't exist. But of course it does. Otherwise, how am I going to get my Easter eggs? I mean, it's just the child believes that. And the point being, which is what I wrote, in the thing that says, hello, pay attention to this video, is that until we're age 7, everything our parents and our elders and our teachers say to us, we think they are all-knowing beings, all-wise, they understand everything, and they are just right. Whatever they say about us, or our world, or about someone else, we believe. So if they say that the people next door have got the wrong colour skin and they're bad and we should fear them, or we should hate them, or we should look down on them, we just believe that. If they tell us that we're stupid or ugly or we can't do something or we can do something or we're unlimited, whatever, we believe that. That's the thing about theta. It just goes in, and we don't get to make a decision about whether we agree with it or not until around age 7, when our brain starts to go faster because of some genetic program, and maybe I think it's a genetic program. I haven't actually looked that up. This is, hey brain, you need to go faster. So if we were doing all of that stuff before we turn 7, before our brain starts to go faster and move into this new frequency, that's, the brain is always making a bunch of frequencies, but predominantly it goes from making mostly theta to mostly alpha brainwaves. And alpha brainwaves are another half again faster than theta brainwaves. So now our brain is going 3 times as fast as it was when we were born. 3 times as fast. So what's it doing? Why does it need to speed up another 50% on whatever it was doing when we were playing and inventing and imagining and creating and relating and learning and all of that stuff that we're doing before we're 7? What happens then is that because the brain is working faster, our analytical mind can finally start to grow, can finally start to develop. And you think, well, what the hell is the analytical mind? So an analytical mind allows you to sort of look at something, a thought, a behavior, something that someone said, something you see, and objectively observe it and think, well, do I like this? Do I not like this? Is this right? Is this wrong? Or to look at a problem and say, oh, there's a problem. How can I figure this out? It's a different kind of thinking, and it's a lot more complex, which is why the brain has to work faster. Now, when you're 7, your problem solving is pretty basic. Your logic is pretty simple. But you do start to have those facilities. And so now when you're 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 and somebody says something mean to you, you can say, no, go away. I don't like you. I don't agree with you. But before we have our brain in alpha and we start developing an analytical mind that can actually take incoming information and criticize it and analyze it and decide whether we agree with it or not, even if we sort of feel upset or whatever when we're small, if somebody says something horrible to us, we can't argue with it. We can't filter it out. It all just goes straight in. And so that's how we absorb the attitudes and perceptions and beliefs of our parents and our society, which if you think about it, you might think, oh my God, I just absorbed all of that and I didn't filter any of it out. But if you're going to survive in that society, you need to do that. You actually have to be big enough to qualify to disagree.
Because up until then, I mean, you still really need your parents and your society and your community once you reach 7. But up until then, you're really vulnerable. If you don't have a community and a tribe and a family around you, you can die. So it's really important, really useful, really valuable that we just take all this stuff in. And, I know I say this every time, but I'm going to say it again. This is not about blaming our parents for everything that we believe or took on about ourselves or our bad behaviors that we learned. It's like, oh, okay, I memorized it. It's not my fault. No. Firstly, your parents had parents and they grew up with the same situation for their first 7 years, and then that became their basis for the lives that they lived and the decisions they made, all the stuff that they weren't aware of in themselves. Because that first 7 years is just about all of your 95% of you that you don't know about. You're completely unconscious about this part of yourself. You don't understand why you react to somebody of coloured skin, perhaps. But when you were small, maybe some aunt that you really loved was really scared of dark-skinned people. And you just absorbed that. It's like, oh, dark-skinned people are obviously something to be afraid of. And you're a grown-up now, but you still have this unconscious reaction in your body to be really cautious around dark-skinned people. Or you think they're stupid. I remember watching a documentary, this is years and years and years ago now, about somebody interviewing a young person who was South African. And he looked like he was 13 or 14 or 15. And he was very seriously participating in the interview. And I can't remember what question the interviewer asked him, but he said, oh, well, the natives or those people, they're talking about the dark people, the African people. Oh, well, they're just not as intelligent as us. They just don't know, they're just not as smart. And he just absorbed that from growing up in an environment, in a society where apartheid was the norm and you looked down on dark-skinned people as being less than you. He hadn't thought about it. He wasn't old enough, even at 15, because he was still in that environment. And bear in mind that if he started to question that, even as a teenager in that environment, it would be really hard for him. It's not conducive to society, to fitting in and surviving if you start to rebel against societal norms. So I'm just saying that this is an example of how we absorb these things. We don't question them and we just say, well, this is who I am and those people are less than me. Because we grew up with it. And of course our parents grew up with it, So this is what we do in Alpha, is we start to criticise, we start to have opinions, we still gather information, and we look to our elders and our parents and our teachers and our peers to help us form opinions about things. But we can also pull things apart. We can also start to say, well, there's this and this and this, and I've got that problem, and I want to do that, and how can I get there? And who can I ask to help me? All of that stuff is the function of the analytical mind. Now, there's another thing that we do, I found this looking on the interweb, where else, that starts to happen when we're age 7. Some of us, speaking of myself, take longer than others. We start to become aware of the feelings of other people. And I didn't know this until I looked it up this morning. So not only does our analytical mind allow us to question what we're told and make opinions for ourselves and decide for ourselves and gather information and solve problems and stuff, but we also start to become aware of how we feel about something or how we feel in ourselves, as opposed to how someone else feels about something or how someone else is feeling in themselves. And it's an important distinction. How I'm feeling and how you're feeling. Oh, you mean they're different? So our brain going into alpha, working faster, working harder, processing more information, allows us to understand that, to begin to understand that. And of course that helps us get along better with people. If we can understand that other people feel differently from us, well, then we can consider other people, and that's a really useful thing if you're in a community. So the point being that I've been trying to make for several weeks, or however long it's been now since I started writing about our unconscious mind, is that only when we get into alpha do we're starting to build the 5% of ourselves that we're conscious of and that we know about and that we can think about and we can access consciously, because we're using the frontal lobe and we're using the think brain, the cerebral cortex, the crinkly part of the walnut, the part that does the thinking, the crinkly part of the brain that looks like a walnut, I beg your pardon. That part is processing information and we're conscious of it. But up until then, when we're in delta and theta, we're absorbing the 95% of who we are up until that point of time, which is completely unconscious because we just had to absorb all of that in order to be able to survive in our society. That's what happens. That's the function of delta and theta brainwaves. Now we're 7 or 8, whatever, we get alpha, we start to be able to be critical and think. We still create, we can still play games and make up stories, but we're more aware that they are games and they are stories. Now, why does this help us to change? Well, I know I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again too. If you understand that your basic operating system, your early programming, went in when your brain was in delta and theta, and you're sitting here as a grown-up in beta, and we haven't even talked about beta brainwaves, but beta brainwaves are faster again than alpha. It kind of stands to reason that with your conscious thinking analytical mind that does alpha and beta brainwaves most of the day, we go in and out of alpha and beta all day, depends what we're doing. You can't really change something that was laid down in your body when your brain was in theta. Theta's a hypnotic state. Just go straight in. I mean, that's why hypnotists and hypnosis work, because you get a person into the same state as when the program was being written, and you can write another program that's just unconscious, that just runs when it's triggered. You can't change an unconscious program with the conscious mind. That statement is the whole reason why I've spent the last 4 or 5 weeks unpacking this. Because we think, oh, I want to lose weight, I want to get fit, I want to find a relationship, but I know I'm not a very nice person and I need to become a nicer person. I want to get a new career, I want to do something. Why is it so damn hard to stop being the person I've been in the past? Why is it so hard to make the changes that I need to make to change who I'm being so I can create a different life? What makes it so difficult? Well, it's all those unconscious programs that just run. And I'm going to hark back to the story that I think I told last week, because I wrote it properly last week, because I tweaked it again this week. Some parts of the writing I just keep going back to because they don't quite work, or I have to tweak them again because the whole thing's changing shape, and there's a whole bunch of that I haven't talked about today because it's kind of bitsy. But the story that I told about the baby that got cold, and it survived, but it went into hypothermia. And, it got warmed up, and Mum didn't, she fell over, she got unconscious, but it was all fine. And the next day, Mum takes the baby into the bathroom for another bath, and the baby starts to cry. And more than that, and this is the piece that I unpacked better, the baby gets cold, and it's still wearing its clothes. What's going on? So the baby starts to cry because the baby's brain recognizes, oh, this is a bad place. And it says, Mum, I don't want to be here, so it starts to cry. But beyond that, the body had an experience the day before of being cold, being alone for a long time. Half an hour's a long time for a 3-month-old baby. And the body remembers, okay, I was cold, and to survive that, I shut down the peripheral circulation in my body. So my arms and hands got cold because I needed to keep the warm blood as much as I could in my core and in my brain, because that's what I have to do to survive. And that helped the baby to survive. So the next time the baby comes into the bathroom, its body mind, not its brain mind, its body mind can say, oh, this is a place where I was really cold. Now I have to do something to anticipate that I'm going to get cold again. I'm going to shut down the peripheral circulation now. I'm not going to wait to get cold. I'm going to do it in advance. And that's a body memory. Now the baby is safe. Mum's there. It's wearing its clothes. It's warm. And yet, because the body has recognized the situation and reacted, it gets cold. It's the same thing that happens with me when my body over responds to cold and my hands blanch. They just go white. It's called Raynaud's syndrome in a grown-up. But I wanted to give that example to show that it's our unconscious body mind that just kicks off and reacts, and it does things. And it's really good that we have one, because it means we can talk and walk, and all the things that we've learned, they get memorized in our unconscious body mind. We need that. But if we want to change something that's memorized in our body mind that we don't need or don't want or that's hurting us, we have to program it there. You can't make the choice of the 5% of you that's conscious. You've got to change the 95% that's unconscious. And that's the point, because we beat ourselves up for thinking, oh, I don't have enough willpower, I'm weak, oh, I can't do it, whatever. But that's why we just don't know how. So thank you for joining in with me. I've really appreciated your company today. I love doing this every week. I will be back in another week, and I invite you to like and share this video. And if you're on YouTube, give me a subscribe. If you want to hear more, I'll be doing another one each week. And I will be dropping extra things into Patreon for my patrons. I get special things. And if you follow me for free, there are special things for you there too. So thank you for supporting me. Thank you for joining in. And I look forward to being back in a week. Until then, lots of love. Bye-bye.